Hi everyone, I'm Jace.
And I'm Yin-Ling.
Welcome to another episode of our Freelance Creative Exchange.
Every week we'll talk to a freelancer or someone about the freelancing economy and the gig economy. And today we have a very special guest with us today, OKJ.
Yay!
Thank you for having me here.
Yeah,
What
actually,
does OKJ stand for?
Do you want to introduce what does OKJ stand for and
Yeah.
what you actually do?
So OKJ is OKJ. The reason why it's OKJ is only because personally I feel very irritated in most scenes where they put first name first. So it's Kajing and then Ong. That's not my name. So I just go with the abbreviated thing. I'm a documentary storyteller. Have been doing that for about 3 years, and it has been quite a crazy ride since.
So as everyone can guess, right, when you look at OKJ, you know that he looks relatively young, but he actually certainly has a journey before him, right? And now he's actually a full-time freelancer. So let's hear a bit about your journey. How do you actually start in these industries?
Well, the industry started from my love for documentaries. I've been watching documentaries since I was a kid. A few things in my life happened that are stories by itself, but maybe the most condensed version I'll give is that when I went into NUS Tembusu College, 4 weeks in, the master of the college announced that they want to send students to Komodo National Park. Now, who wouldn't be excited by that, right? You got to see Komodos real life in the flesh. That sounded like something from Animal Planet and all those. So I thought, you know what? Let's do a documentary about it. I put my name up and then I realized that I was the only one who expressed interest. I do not know why, but I was the only one who expressed interest that day. So they gave me an ultimatum. Run the project as well, along with the documentary, or we have to scrap the whole thing. Now, once again, this is 4 weeks into a brand new stage in my life, which is university. So after 15 minutes of long thinking, I thought this is an opportunity that I couldn't miss. I grabbed it, I repackaged and marketed the whole thing, and it became a 26-man crew. We went to 4 islands across 12 days in Indonesia, and after 11 months, we also made a documentary that was surprisingly well received in like film festivals and won awards here and there.
Yeah, but what were you studying in NUS though?
So in NUS, I studied business. I studied business for 2 reasons. One, because I can. So it became a natural plan B for me. In case this thing doesn't work out, at least I have a degree that apparently society values. And then the second thing is that I personally do not believe in going to a film school. Not to say that film school is a bad thing. I think that is a viable option for a lot of people. Personally, for me, I learned through observations and application. So I felt that rather than going to one of the many schools that I can learn filmmaking, I decided I'll just do the business school thing, and in my own time I would learn through doing the documentaries, doing a lot of like short short documentaries as well, and that seemed to work out in my favor.
So it seems like you already have make up your mind to be a documentary filmmaker while you're still in school.
So are you still, because that's how actually we also came to know about KJ as well, right? Which was through your blog. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you still running it, by the way? Do you still write about documentaries?
So the blog no longer exists. Last time it's called OKJ Discoveries, which is a really long name. Now it's OKJ Works. It's a lot simpler, and there's good meaning behind the name. But I still do continue to write. I think one of the things us freelancers can do to get our name out into the world is to post content, not just video content, but other kind of content as well. And personally, I found that avenue to be LinkedIn. So now on LinkedIn, I do write articles as much as I can, both as a form of reflection, but also as a form of giving value back to the community or just to like other like potential clients. So to give a bit behind the scenes of what the process is like, or what it takes to actually survive or thrive in this freelance economy.
So having go to a film school, having gone to business schools, and then wanting to do, to be a documentary director, storytellers, how do you see your training in the business school help you in your journey to be a freelancer?
Oh, okay. So that's quite interesting. It wasn't intentional. Because at first I always thought it was a backup. But what I found out was that I stumbled upon a good combination. Was that a lot of the times for creatives, we might not have the right verbiage or the right lingo to kind of seize the opportunities at hand. Because sometimes the creative process is a bit uncomfortable for people in the business world or the administrative world. But because of what I've been exposed to in the NUS Business School, I'm able to translate the value of engaging creative services to people who wouldn't do that on a normal basis and make them feel comfortable. And fortunately, because I also came from the hospitality industry, I do know how to onboard people comfortably, because sometimes when you bring new guests or bring new staff into a new hotel, it's a brand new experience. So I also incorporate that along with the business lingo and all that to onboard potential clients into this process.
This actually sounds a lot like what we do. I think so. This is because a lot of times we tell that people we are sort of a middleman, between the creatives as well as the business side of it. Sometimes clients just don't know how to express themselves well, and it's the same for their side as well. The creatives sometimes, if you're an illustrator, you're not the best at expressing yourself in words or pitching it to your client, right? So you have to translate that into what makes sense to the client as a business, or the marketing team. So you help us in project management.
Who knows? But I do want to add as well is that it's not just that creatives don't know how to not all creatives know how to communicate. That it is also both ways. So sometimes a lot of businesses they know what they want, but they do not know how to express it that in a way that's productive to the creatives.
Yeah.
So sometimes, fortunately for me, because of my exposure, I'm able to also pick up on some of the things when a potential client comes to me and then describes what they want out of the video. That's not purely ROI or whatever. And I'm able to okay, I think this video needs to be adjusted as such that it will be both satisfactory to me as a creative, but also definitely satisfactory to you as an investment for all of your marketing or storytelling purposes.
So you just started so-called going into this full-time, right? So how do you actually build your client base, and grow your business in that sense?
So I think for building the client base is there's no easy way out. It is really just elbow grease. I knew that even before I entered NS. So even then, when I kept my ear close to the ground, I've already started to gather name cards, started to build healthy relationships. Maybe I know that then there might not be a project, but who knows? You always want to maximize the potential of opportunities that you might be getting. So it's just a lot of legwork and try to have an impression. Usually, fortunately for me, it's quite easy to leave an impression because I'll just tell people that I'm in the business school, but I do documentaries. That seems to be a very concise way to get people's attention because they'll start to ask why, because it doesn't link and all those. So that's my method. But I'm pretty sure for a lot of the other creatives, they definitely have a unique way of telling their own stories.
So do you mean that for any freelancers who want to start up, it is important for them to actually look for this niche, or at least this I would say this short blurb about themselves that make people excited about them?
Yeah, I think definitely to find a niche would be something that is definitely on the high end of the agenda, because there's so many videographers and content creators, and to differentiate, to just say that you're better is something that's always subjective, and it's always something that you can defend, but it will cost so much, and sometimes speed is of the essence. So when you're able to develop a niche, and by niche it might not be just a specific subject or specific style. I personally feel like a niche could be you. If you're able to define yourself very clearly, then you can become that defining factor as well, which I think a lot of us in the industry always discount ourselves, because we see a lot of people who are clearly better. We see a lot of people who have taken years of effort ahead of us. Like how can we be better? How am I supposed to differentiate against him or her? But our own stories, given the fact that we are storytellers, right? I think when we master the telling of our own stories, it helps us and enables us for opportunities to tell the stories of others.
So how difficult it is for you to land your first client, or maybe how easy it is for you to land your first client?
Well, you can never depend on luck, but I would still say that I've been lucky in that. So I already had the opportunity to have to do an overseas documentary. So, and that is, I think, really something of another tier compared to let's say like a short film and all that. So immediately after I have that, because immediately after I made the film, someone in school saw it, whose father runs a farm in Cambodia, and that became my second project. So from having no experience, suddenly I found myself having two overseas video in my portfolio, and because of that, I kind of also know the right words to say. for potential clients and all those. So I already have 2 overseas projects that I believe are quite well done. And then after that, I also have a few local projects as well. Form a bit of a portfolio, send it in, and then beef it up from there. So it was, I was lucky in having that 1-2 punch.
Yeah. I feel it's like everything sort of fell into place just from like a domino effect, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, just one thing led to another, and then yeah.
But I'll definitely add on to the fact that the reason why I say like don't rely on luck is because like I think at some point in time in all of the creatives life cycle, you would have an opportunity of an abundance of new projects coming in. But not everyone is able to seize the moment because we lack the readiness. So that's why I love to plan ahead of it. It's like I do not know when such opportunities would arise, but I've always planned in advance that when it does come, that I have the ability to grasp it.
So let's bring it back to that, where you were talking about, how do you, when you're speaking or when you're connecting, you're actually building healthy relationships with whoever it is that you may meet. So do you have some tips on that? I guess that's what everybody understands. They know that they need to do, but how do you actually do it? I think that's where a lot of people meet that break. I won't say it's only creatives, for most people in whichever career they choose, this is something that I guess everybody is hoping to have as well, But what do you think works, at least for you?
So for me, in terms of the tips that I may give, and once again, I'm definitely still a student of the game. But what has worked for me is one, to understand myself. Once again, before I tell other people's story, I need to be able to tell my own story to other people first. So I knew that I had a hook in my origin as a documentary storyteller. So I really capitalized on that. I'm also someone who is usually quite blunt. I do not have a poker face. I do not know how to play that game. So that's not my strength. But so when my friends doing reflectives, sometimes we have like heart-to-heart talks and all those. And I've learned over the years that I am a brutally honest person, both to myself and to others. So I also use that to my strength because I understand that whenever I am with a potential client or just someone who might happen to be a partner in the future, and I would just be brutally honest, that also had an impression. And then months or years later, and this has actually happened before, months or years later, I would just suddenly get a random message from him or her stating that, hey, are you still doing video? Because like we are actually looking for this, and you spoke about last time about your documentaries and all that. Are you still doing that? Or why not we meet for a coffee and discuss about that? And that has led to paid work and also career progression.
So who are your usual clients though? Because I know you try to focus a lot on creating your own stories and your own documentaries, right? But in terms of paid work then, commission work, who are you getting it from and what do they usually ask you to do? Is it also very documentary or I would say real content driven?
Yeah, so the way I do my niche is in documentary storytelling. So that's how I frame myself. In terms of commission works, it is for one of the main ones is definitely for corporates who want that documentary telling treatment. So now we see a lot the abundance of content created specifically to tell a deeper story and all these kind of things. So we've seen some fantastic content coming up where it's more of the short film style. Clearly, I think a lot of the works coming out from Thailand has helped to boost that. When you see commercials that are like 5 minutes long, and I think most recently, maybe last year, one of the hits was the NTUC with the wedding. Like that was definitely a clear storytelling thing. And I personally feel that documentary is also heading to that some people feel like, hey, why not rather than just script a story, I think we have story that's brewing in real life, and if we have the documentary treatment, that will help. So that is something that I sell to potential corporate clients, that they have story that they do not need to script. They just need someone who is dedicated enough to be there and capture it when it happens, and in the interviews to ask the right questions. Because I think, especially for documentary, I think interviews is one of the cornerstones, but a lot of people take it for granted, like, just ask questions and then we'll like put it together. I feel that it is almost that is always one of the most important aspects, because I not only just ask questions, I ask the right questions, and I'm usually rewarded by very intimate content that I'm being entrusted to potentially share with the World Wide Web, which is always very vulnerable and intimidating. So I'm always very honored to be given the privilege to do so.
So if a client comes to you then and says like, hey, I just want to make a video, in a different style. Like say I want an MTV style, or just a normal corporate video style. Would you then like do it, or would you say no, let's just try to stick to a documentary style? Like, are you very selective about that, or would you just like go ahead and okay, this is what you want?
So for me, if you ask, my answer is different depending on which stage of life I'm in. Clearly, if you have asked me this a year ago or 2 years ago, then it's like, hey, I need to put food on the table. My school fees need to be paid and all those. Of course, I know I can do it. Maybe I do not prefer this style, but of course I can do it. Right now, I'm still at that midway point, but I found it a lot more productive to, if let's say they want an MTV style. And I had this conversation a few months ago with a client where she wants both documentary style, but every now and again, something that's a lot more hype, a lot more trendy, if you will. And I said to her, for this kind of projects, let me introduce you to my friends. I think being in this industry, especially as a freelancer, you'll end up attracting a lot of like-minded people who are specialists in different styles. So I say that if you have any of these projects, let me know. I'll introduce you to my friend. She's a lot better at doing this than I am, and I think that's the win-win. I forgot who I learned this from, whether it is from a podcast or just from one of those conversations I had with a friend. Was that when I go to the negotiation table with a potential client, the win-win is such that if we leave the table, we don't lose anything. You treat it as though it's just another day. Maybe you lost that hour in negotiating, but you didn't lose any money because that money on the table wasn't yours to begin with. And I think that made me a lot more stronger when it comes to negotiations, because I am much more comfortable not only in valuing myself, but also if I felt that project wasn't right for me in execution, I have no hesitation in saying that, you know what, I can't do this, but my friend can do this really, really well. Why not you sit down with him or her?
Next time you can say Creative at Works can do it as well.
Yeah.
They can do everything for you,
Yeah.
anything for you.
Plug.
Okay, thanks for sharing. But in your process of doing your work, right, especially your first overseas documentary, what are some of the challenges that you face, and how do you actually overcome those challenges?
So in terms of the overseas, so one of the bad habits that I have for the first 3 documentaries that I made, which was 18 minutes, 30 minutes, 25 minutes, most of them were one-man show. I did the production, the directing, cinematography. I wouldn't even say cinematography because that's really a specialist thing, but I shot it myself, editing and all those. So it was 包个料. And sure, that worked fine. I think those challenges are quite obvious, but I think one of the things that I've learned is that is not sustainable, at least not for me, because you really kill yourself at each of the project, even though at the end of it you come up with a film that you really love and all those. So definitely, like in 2019, one of my main focuses this year is to work with other people, which is definitely stepping out of my comfort zone, to work with other people that are usually better than I am because they are specialists in their field. And I love that because they are so strict and so passionate in what they do that I always get to learn from them. But that also means loosening the grip on the process as well, because then it becomes a work that is owned by the people who create it.
So does it mean that you are slowly transiting from a freelancers, which is an individual unit, to building your own team to work on bigger budget project in that sense?
Okay. So for my case, I've recently spoke to someone, Benjamin, which I think both of you know.
Last name
Benjamin Ang.
is it?
Yes,
Ang.
Benjamin Ang.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of
and
Benjamin.
and he's definitely someone who I admire, because the way he has expanded Genesis motion
course.
graphics it's amazing. He's definitely an inspiration.
By the way, Benjamin used to be our freelancers as well. This just shows that we have high quality freelancers.
Yeah, so I had a heart-to-heart talk with him recently, because I was quite conflicted by this whole okay, do you want to create the content or do you want to run a company? Because it's very different. A lot of people end up wanting, okay, I want to create the content and run the company as well. And you realize that that is 2 full-time jobs. People who run the company usually have a lot of burden on their hands.
True.
In HR, in payments, in getting the contracts, that they end up not doing what they set out to do in the first place, which is to create content. And I had a very serious reflection with myself, and I personally realized that I do this because I want to make documentaries, not run a company. So the way I run my operations is a bit different. I do have my own company, and I have freelancers that work for me. So we do get contracts every now and then, but I'm also, as a freelancer, contracted out as talents to other production houses, content creator companies, and all those, as a director or shooter for hire.
So what are the current projects that you're working on right now?
So in terms of, I basically have 2 arms. On the personal building side, I have 10 documentaries this year that I'm planning to make. 10 short documentaries that are under 10 minutes long. It is a challenge that I have given myself because next year I want to be ready to start on my first feature documentary. But I know for a fact that I am not ready yet. There are still a few things that I want to try. There are still a few mistakes that I want to make before embarking on something that will take 3 to 5 years.
But why 10, can I ask?
So when I was forming the thing, there were a lot of like numbers that was floating around in my head because it was more of a more complicated kind of like New Year's resolution and all those kind of things. And I found that round numbers just works nice. At first it was 12. I realized like 12 once per month cannot lah. I've enough experience to know that once per month cannot. 10 seems to be doable now. Not all 10 will be released now. But it seems 10 is doable. It was like my New Year's resolution was 10 short documentaries, 100 LinkedIn articles, and then that will also help improve my reflective process and to also improve my LinkedIn game, which I feel something that all freelancers should do. 300 workouts per year because I also want to be healthy for that. And documentary can sometimes be a very physically demanding process. And to maintain a monthly income of at least $3,000 per month because like I'm already engaged. I have a BTO that's coming up in 5 years, in 2023 and all that. So just nice I have those 10, 100, 300, 3,000. So that just works. For now, everything seems to be on target.
Yeah, very good. It sounds like some corporate KPIs.
Yeah.
It just sounded nice to me, that's all.
Indicators.
Do you have a habit of setting resolutions though and like fully completing them? So I'm sorry, I just have to ask because
for me, I set goals. It just so happened that this was at the start of the year. So maybe there are other things that I've done before, but maybe the most recent to improve my quality of photography, because that's not something that I did before I entered army. I learned photography while I was while I was still serving national service. So in 2015, I think so. In 2015, I decided that I would post a quality photo on Instagram one day every day for 365 days, and that is something that I accomplished. I miscounted, so I published 366 photos, and I think that because of that dedicated process, my photography did improve as a result.
Wow. I told myself to post out a LinkedIn article once every month last year. I only have 8.
I know, I lost track after a while. I think you should go into corporates and then set terms for them and then start like cracking the whip or something like everybody. Yeah, right. that can be another career choice for you. Yeah. I just have to let you know.
Always have options.
Yes, always have options. So there's 10 short films that you want to make, but what is that dream feature that you're talking about next year? What is it that you are always
aiming
for?
No, so for the dream feature next year, there isn't really an idea in mind yet. I'm waiting for life to throw me that idea for this particular feature. But then if you're talking about like, let's say like one documentary that I want to do before I like move on, my first love for documentaries has been space documentaries. That's why I get to sit on the couch in front of the TV and see the wonders of the galaxy, and that's how I've traveled the universe because of it. So before before my time on this place is up, I would want to produce a documentary on one of the final frontiers of mankind, and to allow that to have that documentary be a window for future generations to see and explore and to inspire. And I think that was how I started in documentaries and all that. So that is definitely a long short dream, but something that I want to do.
So being involved in this whole documentary business for a while, right? How do you see the future of freelancing in Singapore? And do you have any hope, of where you like to see yourself as a documentary filmmaker go?
Okay, so like that's a two-part question. So the first part, I see a lot of great potential in the gig economy and the freelance economy, because I think it is slowly maturing to the point that there are some footholds that new people can come in and don't need to get exploited. Organizations like Creatives at Works, for example. Now there's actually support mechanisms. The struggle and the fight for us to get recognized as a labor that should be respected is still a long journey that we have to do, but it's definitely I would say it's definitely improving at a slow but steady pace. I think because of this rather cutthroat environment, I personally appreciate it because it may sound a bit cruel, but the wheat gets weeded out. And those who survive in this know what they're talking about, because I think we do not give enough credit for the people who decide not to do this line of work. I do believe that people who decide not to do the gig economy but to have a quote-unquote traditional way of doing business, they have their own struggles as well. Struggles that maybe us freelancers do not want to admit or concede, because we always like to say that, ours is actually harder, there are no weekends or whatever. Sometimes we do that, but there's suffering in any kind of occupation that you decide to have. It's just you pick what kind of poison you decide to drink because you love that work or that contribution so much. So I believe that we need to change our mindset a bit in terms of us playing the victim card. In terms of the hope of the industry, I once again very, very hopeful about it. I think not only is the economy maturing so that there's more support structures, but I think because of the trailblazers in front of us, a lot more clients are more willing and open up to the ideas of engaging freelancers. Because freelancers, previously it's like, oh wait, you don't have an office, you don't have a stable job. It's like, oh, there are a lot of risks involved. But I think there are enough freelancers that have done this for a number of years to prove that this is a solid investment. This you can find a worthy partner in a freelancer as well.
I have to say, right, that personally, going off on what you just said, why I like to ask people, I would say bring people onto the dark side, onto freelancing, is actually I do enjoy the fact that freelancing has given myself, and I think I've seen it in a lot of people as well, a lot of freedom to accomplish what they have always wanted to accomplish. I feel that is one of the most difficult part to find in your career, in any career that you find. Definitely, I think it's hard in all kinds of all industries, and certain people's dreams are to be a certain profession. For example, you want to be a doctor, the head doctor that you've ever wanted to be. Totally fine, go ahead and do it. If your dream was to become a lawyer and you sit in that profession, yeah, sure, go ahead and do what you've always wanted to do. But for me, it has always been, I don't know, I guess at that point of time of my life, when I was very young, I didn't think about freelancer as being a profession that I wanted to do. But definitely the things that I'm doing as a freelancer, I think is what I've always wanted to do. I think it's the impact that we make on different people's lives as well. Yeah. So sorry, I went on to my own monologue. But that's just a thought that I had. That is difficult, I think. Yeah, like you said, it's difficult in every profession. But I think it's a dream that you want to accomplish. What you actually want to make out of if you're going to work anyway, might as well work in something you like. You know?
Could I ask a question actually?
Yeah, sure.
Just to respond to you, because it's like one of the things that I've spoken about with other people in the industry as well is that one of the costs of living our dream is some of the what other people in the working world would consider basic necessities, because we don't have the health insurance that people who work in corporates get. Like if let's say you pay for your own CPF, once you do the actual calculations, you actually double pay because the 17% from the corporates, now you get to put it out yourself.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that is a cost that is currently too high for us, or is just a cost that you should be willing to stomach to follow your dreams?
I don't know. That's actually a question that even now my mom asks me. You know, even that's why she always is asking me to get a job. It's like, hey, you don't have CPF, you know, you don't see a doctor, who's gonna pay for it? I'm like, Mia. I feel we've grown up too comfortable with that mindset that someone should be responsible for all of this for us. So yes, CPF is supposed to be ours. I think the rules have made it so that our employers are supposed to pay something for us as well. But hey, it's your house if you're going to buy it. It's your healthcare that you should be saving for. You should take responsibility for it. The whole point of, this is my own philosophy. The whole point of the government coming up with something like CPF is because people like you aren't saving. So save, and then there's no problem, right? So it's forced saving, isn't that what it is? It has been very blatantly spelled out since the beginning. Is to force you to save for your health, force you to save for your house. Those are the two main things, you know, force you to save for your next generation as well. So I've always had the mindset that this shouldn't be held accountable to anyone else but myself. So actually, ever since I started out in my career working and earning, even my first 2 jobs, I think I didn't have CPF. And I was like, yeah, fine. I didn't have health benefits. Yeah, okay, but I have money to pay if I need to go to a doctor. It's okay. Yeah, so, and insurance, I mean, I buy my own insurance, you know, I bought it since I was studying myself. So it's a mindset lah. Yeah.
So I think the key issue is not whether it's a CPF or insurance or what. I think we are looking at it as or rather freelancers should look at it as protection lah, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's clearly that as an employee, you are protected, whether it's by the companies, by the government, because there's Employment Act and things like that. But when you're working for yourself, right, then you are responsible for yourself. So if you're responsible for yourself, then these are the things that you need to consider, right? And just like any other business that has cost of capital, right? The cost of running a business. So as a freelancer, if you really see this as a viable career, so those are your costs of running a business. So I think as long as you actually approach it, with a mindset that you understood that there's this protection part, whether is it protecting yourself or is it protecting your equipment, your company, you know. So those are the necessary things that you need to explore.
Yeah.
Right. So I think one of the episodes that we did for our last season was actually on insurance. Right. So
Yeah, I saw that.
and that was actually quite well received. So I think a lot of the freelancers are aware, right, that they need to look into this because nobody else, right, is looking into this for them. So although I think NTUC, the government, MOM and all this, they are trying to push for insurance for freelancers, things like that. So while those are still in discussion stage, but right now the freelancers can relook at their insurance plan already to plan for themselves lah. I think it is a responsible, right, you should be responsible for yourself because you chose this career.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so I actually do once again, I think this really supports that how the this gig economy is maturing in the sense that it does help to support, because I think not only the insurance podcast that you helped, which was quite valuable, you also recently came out with that whole guide on how to do taxes, because now it's tax season, and that's not something that we learn in polytechnics or in universities and all that, which I feel is quite strange since it's something that almost everyone needs to do. So I'm not sure why we are not thought about doing it, but that's a subject for another day. But there are also other things as well. The gig economy also gave rise to things like Carousel. And there's one thing that us freelancers can do that like production houses cannot do, is to buy secondhand equipment and to sell secondhand equipment. And we keep our costs so low if you know how to play that game. And we oftentimes, I think we give the government a lot of like negative voice about how they're not protecting all those. But I think someone put on Insta story a few months ago that I happened to notice is that I think they changed some of the laws, whereby, especially in terms of the copyright law, where now it's like when you make like you take a photo or whatever in Singapore, like that immediately belongs to you. You don't need to file for anything. So I think there's already some progress in the legislative and legislative aspects.
Yeah,
So yeah, we are definitely having it a lot better than like you trailblazers in the early days lah.
No, but I feel it's no matter which path that you choose, whether it's career as well or personal choices, it's always your own responsibility to think about all of these things and to protect yourself in whichever way it is possible.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just it's life.
Right. Before we let you go, right, we just have one last question that we actually pose to every one of our guests. So the question is, if you could give one piece of advice to your younger self, although not too far away from where you are now, when you're just starting out, what would you say?
I would say continue to know yourself, understand yourself, and to practice deliberate ignorance productively. I didn't mention this at the very start, but the main reason why I was able to have a leap of faith was because of deliberate ignorance, which is that I didn't know how hard it was to make a documentary. So if I knew all the challenges of producing an expedition and a 12-day overseas shoot in a language I did not understand, in a country I've never been before, and to get funding and all this, I didn't know the troubles of all that, but I just went in. That ignorance helped me to be blatantly brave, maybe for some of the wrong reasons, but it kept me through the entire process. And that is a diminishing resource. You can't, whereas as you continue in the journey, you won't have the luxury of having deliberate ignorance anymore, because you learn, you get to see stuff, you know the difficulties, and then you have to enter again. So you may only have one chance to have that, whereby I don't know anything, but I do know that I hold things very responsibility, and I'll go to it and I'll make sure that I see it through. Use that first chance and take that seriously.
So, but if you had the choice to go through it again, like NUS would come to you again.
I have personally already gone through that thing 2 or 3 times already. No longer with deliberate ignorance, but I've gone through it again. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's where you switch it on again. Okay, let's go and do it again.
Yeah, but I think that's also one of the things where, at least, I'm not sure about other creatives, because I'm really not very good at short films or whatever. But at least in documentaries, there's always uncertainty. I always do not know how is it going to turn out, because my philosophy is to let life unfold in front of me, and then I would do it justice with every talent or ability that I have. So I am trying to be as comfortable with uncertainty, and use that to tell the story that I can tell best.
Right, great. Okay,
thank you so much for sharing with us today, especially with your very valuable experience and in a very niche market or industry that you have actually chosen in the filmmaking industry, which is documentary making, and your whole journey, of course, which is very unique as well, to have brought you here today. Yeah. So
also, thank you to the audience for staying with us in another episode of the Freelance Creative Exchange.
Please click on the like button below and subscribe. And if you have any questions for OKJ or any one of us here at the show, please do leave a comment below as well.
So until then, bye everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Until next episode.